let's listen into what Nikunj Dalmia, managing editor of ET Now and ET Now Swadesh, had to say on the banking space.
There are two things which are happening in the market. One is that where banks in a sense are giving you growth in terms of credit and also in terms of maintaining their margins, and where the earning surprise is the highest. So the top draw there I think is Axis Bank. Cheap, has not participated, was the late to jump on the banking rally, so to speak. Numbers have been strong. Now markets are convinced that the worst of the book is behind them. Axis for the longest time has struggled for inconsistent delivery and for a poor book quality. I think that wave is behind us. And Axis, in a sense, is at a new cusp of a new avatar because of the acquisition of the credit card business, also what they will do in order to move out in terms of forging the entire insurance business. So Axis for next couple of years now becomes a completely different franchise, so to speak. Second, I would say HDFC Bank, even though it's been consistent in terms, it's not beaten a lot of estimates, but the CASA I think is strong and the deposit growth is strong. So there are two factors which now would be at play. See, SBI is rediscovered. SBI everybody knows is headed in the right direction. ICICI Bank, the re-rating is done. Within Kotak and HDFC Bank, I would say it's a difficult one, but I would say HDFC Bank because again it has underperformed and CASA is strong. But Axis is the one where I would say that the real bank for the buck or the re-rating is still left, given that directionally where the franchise actually is headed.
The take coming in from ET Now Swadesh's managing editor Nikunj Dalmia, who believes that you are yet to see the re-rating in Axis Bank. And not to forget, Axis Bank today is under pressure on back of its earnings. But what exactly is happening in the banking space? Do you think that this year will be the year for the banking space, making a huge comeback once again? Will HDFC Bank be an outperformer? Let's ask all of that question to our experts today. We have Hemant Kapadia on the technical side, as well as Mr. G. Chokalingam, who's joining us on the fundamentals. Very good morning to you, Hemant, as well as Mr. Chokalingam. Thank you so much for joining us on ET Now. Mr. Chokalingam, let me first come to you. One is, how are you viewing the earnings that have come out from the banking space, be it the private sector banks? We're yet to see the major PSU banks come out with their numbers, that is the likes of SBI. But otherwise, how are you witnessing or how are you viewing the entire banking space, and where will you place your bets on, the private sector banks or the PSBs?
Yeah, good morning. This is a very interesting question. If you look at the history, I think the banking sector now positioned, in a very extremely peculiar way in terms of positive developments. There are four major structural changes. To cut short, to be very brief, one, all of us know the NPA cycle has already bottomed out 2 quarters ago, and it has been continuously going down, not only for private banks, even for public sector banks. And second, the credit growth. Post-pandemic, it came down as low as 5%. Now it has picked up even above 15%, which is again, 10-year record high. This is the second structural change. Third, historically, the credit deposit ratio used to be around 70 to 80% range for most banks. But what is interesting to note is that if you see this December results, for many banks, the credit growth is substantially more than the deposit growth. So there is a tremendous push to credit deposit ratio, which means there is a robust demand for credit, and it is likely to continue. And fourth, the structural changes, the banks eating into NBFCs in many consumer segments. For example, in gold loan segment, they have made a major inroad into the NBFC's domain and captured the big markets. Now, the point is that all these post-structural changes have helped in Q3. So that is why most banks have posted a profit growth of anywhere 20 to even 60%, the credit growth of 15 to 30%. Now, interesting to note is that these structural changes are continuing now, even in the current quarter. As you asked in the beginning, they are likely to continue the whole of 23. So which means I think this year is going to be the year of banks. And already it is visible in Nifty Sensex earnings. Their earning growth, basically the positive growth was contributed by the banking sector, because most other sectors together, the profit growth is year-on-year basis stagnating. So this is likely to continue. So one should have a significant exposure, particularly to large private banks and large public sector banks.
Okay, so this year could be once again the year for the banking sector, and the focus will be on the large public and private sector banks. But Himain, coming to you clearly on the technicals, which one would be your pick or your favorite pick on the banking space? Because we have seen a bit of a muted reaction coming in even after a good set of numbers, be it from the likes of Axis Bank, ICICI Bank. All these large cap names didn't perform that great after their earnings, but the HDFC twins seem to be outperforming. Which one, what is your take on the banking space? And in that as well, which one would you like to have a trade on?
A very good morning to you, Sush. Thank you for having me on the show. See, traditionally, if you see last 15 or 20 years, it's been HDFC Bank and Kotak Bank which sort of led the entire bank nifty or the banking pack. PSUs had been, almost, not any, didn't contribute anything of significance to the bank nifty. But now they're back with the bang. So coming back to your question, I think HDFC Bank would be my pick in the private sector banks. It hasn't done much. It is playing catch up now. Looks good. It's broken out of what is a 9-10 week consolidation phase. Has not posted a fresh all-time high. So what I mean to say is it has headroom. So in the private sector bank space, I'd say HDFC Bank. In the public sector bank space, I'd say Can Bank. Both look good, and I believe further upside seems to be a cinch. Shushti.
All right, so that's the take coming in from him in HDFC Bank in the private sector space. Canara Bank in the PSU banking space is what Heymin likes. And on that note, we'll actually slip into a break on this edition of Buy Now Sell Now, because when we come back, viewers, we will be back with your queries. So don't go anywhere.